Okay, guys, so we just want to do a quick episode this week on... So me and Riley just got back from a humanitarian trip in Cambodia. And during that trip, our hearts were really softened and filled with a lot of love for those people because just of everything that they have gone through. And so we want to talk a little bit about this week just on what it means to love people and how relationships and people truly are such a keystone when it comes to heaven on earth. And we just felt that a lot over these last couple weeks. And so we kind of just want to expand and share some of our thoughts on that and how we think as we incorporate people and relationships and improving those and developing those in our life, that we'll just start to see God's hand and we'll start to feel a little more of heaven on earth as we do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it really is just so important to create those relationships because I feel like part of the reason of why we're here is to, one, experience life, but then also to build relationships with other people. Like, those are the two things that I think are going to persist beyond this life, are our experiences and what we've learned, and then as well as like our relationships. And so it's so important that we put time and energy into those relationships that we have in our lives. And I think, too, that it can just allow us to connect with God by connecting with people in, like, a weird sense. But, like, I feel so much closer to God when I am connecting with the people around me and the people in my life. And I also just feel such a greater love because it's almost like God's love is coming out through me almost. Like, I don't even know how to describe that, but it's like such a cool feeling to be able to feel just a portion of God's love for his children. And like, we have the opportunity to just create so many relationships with the people around us. And so, yeah, Cambodia was so cool for us to like go and experience because like these are people that we'd never met before. I'd never been to Asia. And so like, I didn't know that like my heart even had the capacity to love these people as much as I did, but just seeing all they went through was like actually insane because like the history of Cambodia, I mean,
wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah. My dad, he was there with us, and he did a lot of work in Southeast Asia. He's like gone there a lot of times. He also got his master's degree in Southeast Asian studies, so it was cool to learn a lot from him about the history of Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
But something they went through, if you're unaware of the genocide that happened there, is about 1975 to 1979-ish. And if some of these historical facts are off, I'm sorry. This is like what we know roughly. But basically during that time, you had somebody named Pol Pot that he took over power and led a group called the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, and their whole idea and goal was that they wanted to take Cambodia back to an agrarian society where all that they focused on, all that they did was agriculture and farming, and so because of that, anybody that was a teacher, anybody that was educated, doctors, lawyers, all those people were threats to that type of society and also threats to Pol Pot and his power and his goals. And they amassed this army, largely of children or teens, and they slowly were just killing off any educated person. And over those years and through like different camps that they had, where these like really heavy labor camps, where they wouldn't really give them food or water, they'd give them these like tiny proportions. Meal a day. Yeah. So basically, they didn't have enough food to sustain themselves or water, and especially with how hot Cambodia is, a lot of people died in those camps, and lots of people were just executed during that time, and it really divided Cambodia. And after all that was said and done, the estimates are anywhere from about 1.7 million to I think around 3 million people that were killed in the genocide, which at that time is around 25 to 40% of the total population of the Cambodian people. And so pretty terrible and awful thing that happened, and especially to think that only happened 50 years ago, less than 50 years ago.
Yeah,
the end of
imagine
it.
living through that.
Yeah. And we met a lot of people that did,
Mm-hmm.
that lived through it, or they had their parents live through it, or they had lots of people who were close to us, they had grandparents just go missing one day. Never knew what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that we got to know really well, it happened to him where his grandparents were just gone. Never had a photo or anything to look back on and even see like what his grandpa looked like. So super, super sad history. And it was just incredible to go there and to see the amount of love that these people would show us and the amount of love and respect that they would show each other even after such a hard thing has happened only 50 years ago. And it was really inspiring for me to see, at least.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and there was this one particular person, his name is Loy, and he was like a local coordinator for the humanitarian groups that we go out with. And he kind of shared his experience with living through the Khmer Rouge. And he was taken as a child and put in these camps, and he lived in those camps for years, and just had one meal a day, and like obviously was starving and had to do all this work, and it was just crazy to see how he lived through that. But then we ended up talking to him about like how he found God through it all. And the one thing he said was like, my life is so much better with God. Like I chose a life with God because I know it's so much better than a life that I could have lived without him. I thought that was so inspiring because anytime you see Loy, he's like smiling. Like anytime you look at him, he just has the biggest, fattest smile on his face. And that was such a testament to me about how God's love, even through your hardship and even through the trials that you experience, can still be so eminent in your life. And like that's what really matters. And so he was a big example to me of like living through those big hardships, yet still believing in God and finding the good and knowing that his life is still so much better with him. And so, yeah, Loy was literally the best. We love that
awesome.
guy.
And another part of that story that really stuck with me too, that just goes to show how important relationships are, is that while he was in that camp, I don't remember all the details, but basically he got wind of where his mom was, that she was like in a neighboring village as to where they were working. And so one night he decided to sneak out to go see his mom. And sneaking out obviously put him at risk of being executed, being killed, being punished very severely. Probably best case scenario, being punished very severely. And he snuck out anyways, and I remember him telling us he had to cross a river, so he had to get all of his clothes and like put them over his head, crossed the river, ran, I think he said it was like 7 kilometers to where his mom was, just to spend a few precious moments with her before they said, you got to hurry and go back, because if they catch you out here, if they wake up and you're not there, like, you'll probably be killed. And so he had to go back, and he was able to make it through safely. But I just think that just goes to show how crucial relationships are in our life, that he was willing to put his life at risk just to have a moment with his mother. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me like want to treat certain people that way, with that kind of respect, like the time that they give people, that people give you, and the interactions that you have with people. If you treat it kind of like Loy's mother and Loy himself probably treated that moment that they had together, imagine how many special moments we would all have in our life, just with the mindset of like, wow, this person risked death just to like talk to me. Mm-hmm. Imagine if you had that mindset in every normal conversation. It would make your day-to-day relationships and your day-to-day conversations so sacred, I think.
Yeah. Well, and we not only like went to Cambodia and developed this like new love for the Khmer people, but also like we got to go on this humanitarian trip with 19 teenagers, which honestly, I love hanging out with teenagers. Like, I think it's so fun. Even though, I'm 24 and I should be hanging out with people my age, like, it's kind of refreshing to be around people that have such like a youthful love for life. But there was this moment one time where I just felt so much love for them. And every morning and night we did like a devotional where like we kind of get to read the scriptures and discuss together and kind of talk about our testimonies and God and stuff. And there was one time, it was morning, and it was still like we were still getting adjusted to the Cambodian time because it's a pretty big time shift, and we had been traveling for like so many hours with minimal sleep. And we were reading the scriptures. It was like a part where we kind of like all do an individual study or we're reading the scriptures. And there's this one kid that I saw at the corner of my eye that was like fighting to stay awake. And he finally just like got up out of his chair so that he wouldn't fall asleep, so he could stand up and like read his scriptures. Like it was so important to him that he like wanted to do that so bad. And it was just so cute to me. Like I felt so much love in that moment for that kid who like all he wanted to do was read God's words. And he knew that like he would have fallen asleep if he just stayed in that chair. So he like stood up and like stood by the ledge and like blinked really hard a couple of times so he could like really like stay focused and just like have those moments with God. And for me, like that was like a really personal moment of like where I felt so much love for that individual kid. And those are some of the coolest moments we can ever experience in this life, is like feeling godly love for another person. Because like it's not just love that you feel for them, it's literally God manifesting his love for them through you, and it just is a love that's multiplied and unlike anything else you've ever felt, that it feels so surreal. Like those are some really precious moments for me, and I feel like I had a lot of those on this trip. Like moments where you just look at them and you're like, holy crap, like God loves you so much. And like if you're feeling that right now, that like that truth isn't real for you, like just know that God has such an undeniable love for every single one of his children, including you. And even when you can't feel it, like it is still so there. And there's a quote that I love that kind of goes along with like, you know, it was someone had said it in, I think, World War II, where they had read a journal on someone who had like survived through some of the Holocaust camps. But he said, I believe in the sun even when it's not shining. I believe in love even when I don't feel it. I believe in God even when God is silent. And like I just love that quote, because even when you can't feel those things, you know that they're still real in there. And so like if you feel like you can't necessarily feel God's love, just know it's still so there. And like it will penetrate to you at some point, and you will feel it at some point, and it will change your life. But don't give up on him just because like maybe you can't feel it, or that you don't feel him, because he's right alongside you the whole time.
So true. And I think just one of the purest forms to feel God's love is through the people around us. And there was this moment I also had in Cambodia. Sorry, me and Ryan are kind of just going back and forth with our stories. But I hope you guys can get something out of this. This is a really special moment for me where we were in sacrament meeting in Cambodia. And during that meeting, I love to see the little differences in every place that I go, where, you know, they bless the bread and the water in their own language. They sing the hymns in their own language, and then the little bits of their culture shine through. Like one of the simple things they do in Cambodia is they bow every time they like greet somebody. They'll bow, or they want to show respect. And I don't know exactly how it works, but they'll kind of normally have their hands higher up depending on who they're bowing to and the amount of respect that they're giving to that person. And it was just so cool to see every time anybody would give a talk or say anything to the mic that they would stand up and then bow to each person that in the bishopric, or each person that was up on the stand, like the leaders, and then they would bow to the entire audience, everybody listening. And just the amount of like respect and love that they would show through that, like such a simple demonstration, really touched my heart. And so I was already kind of feeling the Spirit watching that happen and just appreciating this culture and these people. And then we started playing the piano to sing a hymn. And just this little Cambodian girl was up there playing the piano. And she was only playing the melody notes. So on the piano you have like your left hand and two different notes you're playing on your left, and on your right hand two different notes that you're almost always playing on your right as well. And she was just playing like the highest keys on the piano with her right hand, just those melody notes, just so that everybody could kind of hear the general melody and sing along. And anyways, a lot of times in the States I feel like you want to like play really elegantly and all that stuff, but it was just so simple, each little note. And then to hear everybody singing, and a lot of times people would start singing faster than the piano was being played, or the person playing the piano would mess up a little bit, and then everybody would keep singing, and then the person on the piano was trying to like re-find where everybody else was at. And it was just kind of funny, but also looking around at all the people, all the Cambodian people there, none of them were like laughing when things like that would happen or anything. Like, they were still just so focused on like singing the words that were in the hymn book, and so purely focused on worshiping with the most intent that they had, just to worship and follow Christ. And I just felt in that moment such a sacred love for those people, just that they had the purest intentions just to follow Christ and just to do their best, even if their best was just the melody note on the piano, and even if their best was getting a little off on the song. Like, no matter what, they were just going to offer all that they had to God. And it was just honestly probably the purest form of worship that I might have ever witnessed in my life, was in that moment during that meeting, watching those people. And I just loved it. I loved seeing that. And it made me want to be around people that want to worship like that. And it made me want to worship with that kind of intention, that the big fancy things don't matter. All that matters is the simple adoration and love that we give to our Heavenly Father, and to the respect and the love that we give to the people around us, which they just so purely displayed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their faith in Cambodia is so beautiful. The fact that like a lot of them found Christianity, because like obviously a majority of their population is Buddhist, like just made me think about like what I would do in those scenarios. When like you grow up in this culture where it's like everyone believes the same thing, and then like you see these two missionaries that are talking about Jesus, and you're like, what? Like, no, I've never heard of them. Like, what value do they have to bring to my life? Whatever. And that they just heard the stories of Christ and learned more about him, and that his church was restored and all that, and that they just automatically wanted to be converted. Like, their faith was so beautiful to see, like when we were going around and like seeing some of the families. Yeah, but it just is amazing how much love you can feel for people if you actually let your heart like feel it, you know? And yeah, Cambodia was very special for us. We loved being there and experiencing their culture and learning more about them and why they believe what they believe and why they act how they act. And me and Nate are going to start bowing to everyone, honestly, because it really is so cool. I don't know why we don't have something like that in our culture. But
I think for me, like, my biggest takeaways, and just to kind of wrap up my thoughts, is simply make every interaction a sacred and special interaction. Like, the people, every bow that they have, every like moment that they have with people is sacred and special to them. And it goes the same with God. Every moment that they have with God, they make sacred, and they make it intentional. So I know I'm going to go forward in my life trying to make my interactions really matter, trying to make each moment with each person I talk to a moment that could change my life and that could change their life. And then, secondly, making each moment with God matter. making those moments count and really trying to not care about the fancy things or what other people think, but just worship to worship in its purest form.
And if you want to start feeling a little more heaven on earth, like, that's how you do it.